Let's start with the today's examination, that is the 8th cranial nerve. 8th cranial nerve. None other name of this 8th cranial nerve, it is the vestibulocochlear nerve or the auditory nerve. If we do the functional classification of the cranial nerves, it is the pure sensory type of nerve. Okay, so as the name of this cranial nerve, vestibulocochlear nerve, it is divided into the vestibular division of the 8th cranial nerve and the cochlear division of the 8th cranial nerve. Vestibular division of the 8th cranial nerve, it carries the sensation from the semicircular canal of the ear, and it is concerned with the equilibrium or the posture, you can say posture and equilibrium. While this cochlear division, it is carry the information from the cochlea and it carries the information of the hearing. Now also think that which are the pure sensory nerves. Which are the pure sensory cranial nerve? One already we have mentioned, that is the 8th cranial nerve. Which are the other two? The cranial nerve 1 and the cranial nerve 2. And third one is 8. So the 1, 2 and the 8. These three cranial nerves are pure sensory type of nerve. This is also the question can be asked in the MCQ or the one-liner question, that which are the pure sensory nerve. That is the first nerve, olfactory nerve, second one is the optic nerve, and the third one, that is the third one, that is the auditory nerve or the 8th cranial nerve. So this was about the introduction to the cranial nerve. Now which test you have to do for testing the integrity of this 8th cranial nerve? For the vestibular division, that is concerned with the posture and the equilibrium, we usually elicit the nystagmus. We require some specific requirement. The whatever tests are there, we require the hot and cold water. Also, we in another test we require the rotating chair. So these are the tests related to the vestibular division. We will learn related to this in later part of this practical. And cochlear division of the 8th cranial nerve, that is we do the hearing test. Now exam point of view, what is the importance of this now in exam? So usually it is asked in the major clinical question as well as in minor clinical question, and usually we ask the this now in form of that question is like perform the hearing test. That is the one question. Another question, it is we can also ask as a assess the integrity of cochlear division of the 8th cranial nerve, or we can also ask it as a examine or assess the integrity of the auditory nerve, or we also ask as a do the test to see the integrity of the auditory nerve. So these are the different form of the question related to this 8th cranial nerve, that is the vestibulocochlear nerve. Among this vestibular part and the hearing part, this cochlear division of 8th cranial nerve, it is more important because see, the hearing, it is a purely form of this 8th cranial nerve. While equilibrium, it is not only the function of the 8th cranial nerve. It is also concerned with the cerebellum. It is also concerned with the visual senses, the visual sense or the visual information carried to the cerebellum. So there are multiple factors. When you learn the postural reflexes, you can see that in maintenance of the posture and the equilibrium, there are multiple factors and multiple centers. While for the hearing, it is only concerned with this. The sensory input is only from this nerve. While for the posture and the equilibrium, the sensory input are in different forms. So that is the basic difference. Multiple centers are definitely involved in both, but for sensory input, it is for the hearing is carried out by this only this nerve, that is this cochlear division of the 8th cranial nerve. While for the posture and the equilibrium, not only this nerve, there are multiple sensory inputs. Okay, so now let's start with the hearing test. Let's start with the hearing test. Which hearing test we will do to assess the integrity of the cochlear division of the 8th cranial nerve? Again, 8th cranial nerve, it is a pure sensory type of nerve, and other two pure sensory nerve, that is the cranial nerve 1 and the cranial nerve 2. Now first hearing test, that is a watch tick test. The second one is the Rini's test. Third one is the Weber's test. Fourth one is the Schwabe's test. Again, one is the absolute bone conduction test. Absolute bone conduction test, that is in short we call as a ABC. That is absolute bone conduction test. When you go through the theory book or when you refer your journal, there are another two tests, that is a voice test. Another one is a Galton-Wiesel's test. So usually these two tests we are not going to perform. I will tell you the procedure, but usually we go through this test: watch tick test, Rini's test, Weber's test, and the Schwabe's test. And among this also we usually do only 3 tests, that are the tuning fork test. This one is also tuning fork test. So these are the tuning fork test. Okay. Now what is the interpretation of all these tests? I will show you in demonstration. But what is basically the interpretation of this test? Why we are doing this test, or what is the significance of this test? Whenever we do some practical, always think that is how it will be helpful to me in the clinical practice, right? Or what idea I can get by performing this test, what physiological parameter I am going to measure, or what type of diagnosis or what type of pathology I can diagnose, or I can get idea about the whatever pathology by performing this test. So for the hearing, these are the tuning fork test. Why we are doing this test? Because this is a basically simple and the OPD procedure, and very less time consuming, or we can say it is very quick. It is very you can perform within the minutes. It is only you required thing, that is a tuning fork, right? So by only doing this 5-minute procedure, you can get idea about the etiology or the cause of the deafness or the cause of the hearing impairment. There are other tests for the hearing, that is the audiometer. There you can see that there is a audiometry, right? That is the 6th test. The 7th test, that is the evoked potential, auditory evoked potential. Auditory evoked potential. So this test, they are actually required the specific instrument. For audiometry you require the closed room, soundproof room, as well as you require the instrument name is audiometer, which produces a different frequency sound with different intensity in different decibels. And there is a computerized audiometer available, in which there is a you can record the graph also. So it is a complicated procedure. Definitely results are precise, but it is a complicated. In every patient which complain that the decreased hearing, you cannot perform audiometry in each patient. Okay. And the more complicated procedure, that is the auditory evoked potential. What you do in the auditory evoked potential, in that we place the electrode over the mastoid. We place 2 electrodes here, the laterally to the vertex, in which we give the stimuli in form of the sound, and we record the waves, the amplification of the whatever stimuli occur inside. We record the waves, like as in the EEG, we record the waves of the sleep. So here we give the sensory stimuli in form of the sound, and we record the waves. So we can see that the at which level the hearing impairment is there. So that is the auditory evoked potential. Okay, let's start. Then how we hear the sound. There are two ways in which we are hearing the sound. One is the air conduction and another one is the bone conduction. So, in whatever tuning fork test we are going to do, we will elicit the hearing in form of the air conduction as well as the bone conduction. Now, what is the principle of this air conduction and the bone conduction? That is, we set up the vibration in the tuning fork and place it near the external auditory meters, that is the air conduction. In that, what happened, the vibration sound that will travel through the external auditory meters go into strike over the tympanic membrane. From tympanic membrane, it set up the vibration of the ear ossicles. Ear ossicle, there is amplification of the sound taken place, and the ear ossicle, they set up the vibration into the fluid of inner ear, and the current in the fluid of inner ear, it will stimulate the hair cells. Hair cell, they generate the action potential. The action potential, whatever generated by this hair cell, they travel through the neurons of the neurons, and they carry the information to the spiral ganglion. From spiral ganglion, information carried to the cochlear nucleus. From cochlear nucleus, it go to the superior olivary nucleus, which both these nucleus are located inside the medulla. Both these nucleus are located inside the medulla. Then the information carried to the midbrain. In midbrain, there is a inferior colliculus. From inferior colliculus, the information carried to the medial geniculate body of the thalamus, and from the medial geniculate body of the thalamus, the information is carried conveyed to the auditory cortex. That is the area number 41. So this is the way how we hear, right? See here, the inferior colliculus is related to the hearing, superior colliculus it is related to the vision. Okay, medial geniculate body it is related to the hearing, and the lateral geniculate body that is concerned with the vision. So both these senses, they are located very nearby. Now this was the talk about the air conduction. Now how we hear from the bone conduction. So in bone conduction, we set up the vibration of the tuning fork. We place the base of the tuning fork over the mastoid process that is located just outside the cochlea. It will, or whenever we place the base of the tuning fork over the vertex or in the middle of the forehead, they set up the vibration into the skull bone, and the vibration on the bone that is conveyed to the the vibration in the bone that is conveyed to the inner ear fluid. They set up the vibration into the inner ear fluid, and this inner ear fluid again stimulate the hair cell, and again same thing is happened. So here the sound we hear, the sound we hear, that is by setting up the vibration inside the bone. So this is the bone conduction. This is the principle of bone conduction. In our routine life, whatever sound we hear, it is by the air conduction, because air conduction is always better, because the whatever the amplification taken place by the ear ossicles, they help us better as compared to the bone conduction. Bone conduction in our routine life happens when there is a very loud sound. When there is a very loud sound that set up the vibration into the skull bone, and that is transmitted by the bone. So that is the bone conduction. That is the principle of air conduction and the bone conduction. Now the demonstration of the test of this Wojcik test, Reynolds test, Weber's test, and the Schwab's test. I will do the demonstration of all these tests. This absolute bone conduction test, it is same as the Schwab's test. It is the same as the Schwab's test, but only difference is that in absolute bone conduction test, we closes the external auditory meters of both subject as well as the examiner. We will occlude the external auditory meters in both, and the interpretation is same as the Schwab's test. The demonstration of the Wojcik test. In this you have to compare your hearing ability with the subject. This is a very gross hearing test. Only gross hearing impairment you can judge by this test. Now I will instruct the subject. તમને જ્યારે હું ધીમે નજીક લાવું, જે જગ્યાએ તમને ટીક ટીક અવાજ સંભળાય ત્યારે તમારે હાથ ઊંચો કરવાનો. And I will compare that. At the same time I am also hearing the tick tick sound of the watch. or in short I am comparing the distance at which we both hear the tick sound of watch or not. That is a watch tick test. Okay. એટલે ધીમે ધીમે તમારે હાથથી નજીક લાવવાની છે વોચને અને એનો ટિક ટિક સાઉન્ડ જે સાઈડ પર સંભળાય છે એ ડિસ્ટન્સ કમ્પેર કરવાનું છે. ઓકે. At this side I am also hearing the tick sound. So this is the watch tick test, and again this is a very gross hearing test. So this is the watch tick test. So the demonstration of the tuning fork test. There are 3 tuning fork tests. One is a Riene's test, another one is the Weber's test, and the third one is the Squebeck's test. In this test you have to use a tuning fork with how much frequency? That is 256 Hz and 512 Hz. If you will use the tuning fork with 128 Hz frequency, it will create more vibration rather than the sound. While when we use the tuning fork with frequency of higher than it will create more sound as compared to vibration. Obviously, here sound is also produced by vibration, so all creating the vibration. But when we consider ourselves for appreciation, so we will appreciate more sound when we use the tuning fork with 256 and 512 Hz frequency. And if we will use 128 Hz frequency tuning fork, we will appreciate more vibration as compared to the sound. So that's why we are using the tuning fork with frequency of 256 or 512 Hz frequency. Now the examination will start. For that, obviously you have to give the proper instruction to the subject, so the subject can understand it properly. Okay. Now we will instruct the subject. તમારે આંખ બંધ કરવાની છે. હું આ બેઝ જે છે એ અહીંયા આગળ મૂકીશ. અહીંયા તમને એક અવાજ સંભળાશે. જ્યારે અવાજ સંભળાવવાનો બંધ થાય ત્યારે તમારે હાથ ઊંચો કરવાનો અને પછી હું અહીંયા આગળ રાખીશ તો તમારે જોવાનું કે તમને અવાજ સંભળાય છે કે નહીં. જો સંભળાતો હોય અહીંયા આગળ તો તમારે હાથ ઊંચો કરવાનો. બરાબર. એટલે અહીંયા અવાજ સંભળાતો બંધ થાય ત્યારે હાથ ઊંચો કરવાનો અને પછી અહીંયા મૂકવું અને અહીંયા અવાજ સંભળાતો બંધ થાય ત્યારે હાથ ઊંચો કરવાનો. બરાબર. So that is the instruction I have given for the Riene's test. I will vibrate the tuning fork. I will hold the tuning fork like this between the thumb and the fingers stem of the tuning fork. This one is the base and these are the blades. So you have to hold it that you should not touch the blades of the tuning fork, otherwise it affects the vibration. Okay. Now strike the blades of the tuning fork on the rubber pad or on the hypothenar eminence of the palm or on the thigh, whatever the convenience for you. Ideally you should not do it by striking the blades over the table or over the book. Okay. Now so here the person is appreciate the air conduction greater than that of the bone conduction. Okay. I have placed the base of the tuning fork on the master process that we are assessing the bone conduction. Then I am placing the blades of the tuning fork near the external auditory meatus. So this we are assessing the air conduction. Normally air conduction is greater than the bone conduction. Air conduction is greater than the bone conduction. So this is we have assessed the right side of the ear. Air conduction is greater than the bone conduction. It is also known as the Riene's test positive. We will do it this all the opposite side of the ear also. Same વસ્તુ તમારે પેલી બાજુ કરવાની છે. બરાબર. Okay. Here also air conduction is greater than the bone conduction. So both are positive and that is normal. Then the Weber's test. So Weber's test, ideally we should place the base of the tuning fork over the labilla or in the midline structures, the in forehead over the labilla or in the vertex. They are on the midline. And then you have to instruct the subject that you heard more sound on one side, or you are hearing the sound equally on the both sides. So give the proper instruction to the subject. તમને બંને બાજુ સરખું સંભળાય અથવા નહીં સરખું વધારે સંભળાય અથવા ઓછું સંભળાય તો કહેવાનું. બંને બાજુ સરખું સંભળાય છે? સરખું સંભળાય. સરખું સંભળાય છે? સરખું છે. The subject is so here we will hear that no lateralization. Then the Squabax test, in which we will compare the bone conduction of the subject with ours. So in this we have to compare the bone conduction of the subject and the examiner, assuming the examiner the hearing is normal. તમને સંભળાતું બંધ થાય એટલે કહેજો. બંધ. So I am also not appreciating the sound of vibration. So the bone conduction of the Squabax test of the person is normal. So equal as examiner. In interpretation you have to write as same as examiner. I will do it on the opposite side. Here I am also not appreciating the vibration sound. So here I will also write down the same as examiner. Reverse way we can also do, in which if person is having the conductive deafness, then in that case the subject having the bone conduction greater than that of the examiner. And inference is normally air conduction is positive, air conduction is greater than the bone conduction. So the inference is normal. So the integrity of your 8th cranial nerve is normal. Now we will discuss the two situations, so that how can we get idea that the person having the which type of deafness, as in the air conduction defect is there or there is a bone conduction defect is there. Now patient is complaining that decreases the hearing. We are going to perform the tuning fork test. Then for Renes test we have performed first, that is the Renes test. If the person's air conduction is less than that of the bone conduction. Here the person is air conduction is less than that of the bone conduction. So there are definitely more chances that the person is having the conductive type of deafness. Okay. Now we will do the second test, that is the Weber test. If we are now by this air conduction is less than that of the bone conduction, we are assume that the person is having the conductive deafness, but we have to confirm it that the person is surely have a conductive deafness, right? So we will do the Weber's test. Normally interpretation of the Weber's test is no lateralization. Person hears the sound equally on the both sides. Now if we will do this Weber's test, in that case if the person is having the conductive deafness in right side of the ear, then person will hear the better bone conduction, or the better sound will be heard by bone conduction into the right ear. So here if person having the conductive type of deafness, so what will be interpretation by the patient, that lateralization to right ear, lateralization to the right ear, because in right ear what will happen, the air conduction is get decreased, air conduction is defective. So there is a whatever environmental sound surrounding to us, they are get masked. So there is no effect on the bone conduction. So the bone conduction, in that we are directly simulating the bone, and the environmental masking effect is not there. So the person appreciate the bone conduction better. It will, as it is similar like this, we close our external auditory meatus, we will definitely heard better our inner sounds. Okay, so the lateralization of the ear to the right ear into the Weber's test, it will confirm that the person surely having the conductive deafness. Now we again confirm that by this Weber's test, in that the bone conduction into the right ear. Bone, because here the conductive deafness in the right ear. So whenever there is a conductive deafness, in that case bone conduction is better. So in that case what will happen, if we do the Schwaber's test, the person's bone conduction, the subject's bone conduction, subjects or the patient's, or better terminology is patient's bone conduction is greater than the examiner. This again confirm that the person having the conductive type of deafness. One thing I have to again mention that in Weber's test, when we there is a doubt about the conductive deafness, in Weber's test usually what we do, we strike the tuning fork, place the base of the tuning fork over the subject's mastoid process. When the person stops hearing, he will raise the hand. We place the tuning fork over our mastoid process. But if the person having the conductive deafness, we will do the reverse. That we place the base of the tuning fork on examiner first. When we sees that there is no more sound, we are sees the hearing, we place the base of the tuning fork over the subject. In that case, subject will still hearing the sound. So that is the patient's bone conduction is greater than that of the examiner. So that is the case of the conductive deafness. Now what will be there, that is the conductive deafness. I will keep it as it is. That is the case 1 or the situation 1. Case 1 or the situation 1. Case 1 or the situation 1. Now the second situation. Here the person, if there is a left ear, this interpretation will be there, only there is a left ear is normal. So then the left ear there is a end conduction is greater than the bone conduction. Here the bone conduction of the left ear, it will be same as the examiner. Okay, so that is the case 1. Now second situation. In that case, the air conduction is greater than the bone conduction. That is the case 2. Air conduction is greater than the bone conduction. Okay, so we will assume that, or we will think that the person is normal, but the person having the complaint that the decreasing the hearing ability. Now we will do the Weber's test. In Weber's test, if the person having the complaint in the right ear, that I appreciate there is a decreases the hearing in specific ear, or sometimes patient not know that in which ear we decreases the hearing. So suppose the air conduction is greater than the bone conduction, and the patient having the deafness or the hearing impairment in the right ear. So this is, we assuming this is normal. Air conduction is greater than the bone conduction. So what happened in Weber's test? In that case, the lateralization to the healthy ear. So here what happened? Lateralization to left ear. Here the lateralization to the left ear. So this will confirm that the person having the lateralization the one side, so the person having the sensory neural deafness into the right side. Sensory neural deafness into the right side. That is the case 2. So in conductive deafness, air conduction is less than the bone conduction, and when we do the Weber's test, if person having the conductive deafness, the lateralization to the defective ear. Lateralization to the defective ear. When we think about, or when we discussing about the sensory neural deafness, the lateralization to the normal ear. lateralization to the normal ear into the sensory neural deafness. This again we will confirm by this Quebec test. In that case, into the right ear, the person having the sensory neural deafness into the right ear, and if we do this Quebec test, what will happen that bone conduction is less than that of the examiner. Bone conduction is less than that of the examiner. Bone conduction of the patient is less than that of the examiner. So this will confirm that the person having the sensory neural deafness into the right ear. Okay, this will occur when only there is a partial nerve deafness. So this is the final interpretation of the tuning fork test. The case 1 is a conductive deafness, the case 2 is a sensory neural deafness, but here the partial deafness. If there is a complete neural deafness, then air conduction as well as bone conduction both are person is not able to perceive. In that case, you can do audiometry, right? But by tuning fork test, if there is a complete deafness, so the case is somewhat different, and you will definitely know if there is a total neural deafness or the complete nerve deafness. Here, how will we differentiate between this conductive deafness and the sensory neural deafness? That by Rinne's test, in Rinne's test, this, if there is a conductive type of deafness, Rinne's test will be negative. The air conduction is less than that of the bone conduction. If the sensory neural deafness, the air conduction is greater than the bone conduction. So, test is positive, but it is false positive. So, how will we know that this is a false positive? By doing this Weber's test and the Schwaber's test. In Weber's test, lateralization to the right ear. So, here the conductive deafness in the right ear. So, in Weber's test, lateralization to the right ear, we can also see that in Weber's test, lateralization to the defective ear. Lateralization of the sound to the defective ear. While if there is sensory neural deafness, in that case, there is a lateralization of the sound to the normal or the healthy ear. Normal ear or the healthy ear. In when we do a Schwaber's test, if the person having the conductive type of deafness, then that case the patient bone conduction is greater than the examiner's bone conduction because of masking effect of the environment. While on left side it is same as examiner. If there is a sensory neural deafness, then the patient's bone conduction is less than that of the examiner bone conduction. And opposite side it is the same as the examiner. So this was about the interpretation of the sound. Now there is a one I am sharing one image is also there, in which there is a you can see this all findings, or but in some different terminology. So you can take a screenshot of that also, or you can take the screenshot of this. So by we are talking about the audiometry. In audiometry, there is a instrument in which audiometer it produces a sound of different frequency, usually from 125 Hz to 12,000 Hz frequency. With each frequency, person will hear the sound in specific intensity. And if his patient is not able to hear the sound at that intensity, we gradually increases the decibel, and we finally make a graph of audiometer, right? So this was about the audiometry. Now auditory evoke potential, in which we place the electrode over the mastoid as well as on the lateral to the on both sides, lateral to the vertex. We give the specific sensory stimuli in form of the sound, and we record the waves. It is similar to like this. We record the electrical waves of the sleep, that is in the EEG, right? Here we are giving the sound stimuli and we record the sound which are recorded from our brain or the different center. By recording this evoke potential, we can map out, or we can note the site of the neural lesion, at which site the defect is there. This test particularly helpful to us in the patients which are not able to cooperate to us. So this can be, we can do on the infants or the children that are not able to give you the proper answer, or when we know the exact site of the lesion, that at which level the defect is there. Third thing, that is a type 1 type of personality, that is a malingering type of personality. In that case, that type of personality, patient usually say that I am not able to see anything, I am not able to hear anything. That is one type of personality patient falsely complaining that I am not able to do this, in that case you cannot force the subject that he or she can give the proper answer. It is usually happen into the prisoners. They want to escape and they complain that I'm not able to hear anything. So they shifted the prisoner to the hospital and they get some chance to go outside. So usually in prisoners this malignant type of personality frequently found. In that case, if we want to prove that the person is able to hear, then we can do this evoke potential. So that is the significance of the evoke potential. So this was about all about the test of the cochlear division of the eighth cranial, vestibular division of the eighth cranial now. So vestibular division of the eighth cranial now, it is concerned with the posture and the equilibrium, right? How will we do the test for the vestibular division of the cochlear now? That is we elicit the nystagmus. We elicit the nystagmus into the patient or the subject. Now what is the nystagmus? So the nystagmus, it is a rhythmic to and fro movement of the eyeball like this. The physiological nystagmus is also occur. I am giving you the example. Then we go into the train or we are sitting in the bus and there are rapidly moving objects outside to it. We focus on the scene particularly. Then involuntarily our eyeball are moving continuous like this. So the involuntary rhythmic movement of eyeball, that is known as a nystagmus. When we read the book very fast, like in the few minutes before the exams, we are in very hurry and we read the book like this. So these are also we call it nystagmus, but these nystagmus are physiological. Here to check the vestibular division of the eighth cranial now, we elicit the nystagmus and there are three tests. So the one is the caloric test, the second one is the Bernoulli's chair rotating test, and the third one is the galvanic nystagmus. So in all this, we elicit the nystagmus by different procedure. Like most commonly performing is there is a caloric test, because there is a no requirement for the caloric test. Only we require the hot or the cold water. Right? We pour the hot water. Then we pour the cold water. Both we pour the hot and the cold water alternatively, and it will elicit the nystagmus. The Bernoulli's chair rotating, then there is specific chair available that it rotate the patient in specific RPM and it will elicit the nystagmus. So this was about the vestibular division of the eighth cranial nerve. But before that, there is a one simple test we call it a Romberg test. Romberg test or the Romberg sign, in which we ask the subject to close the eye like this and ask him to stand steadily with closed eye, and we will see that the person is swaying to one side or not. So it will help us to know the type of ataxia. It will help us to know the type of ataxia, that in that case what happens if there is a defect in the cerebellum, the person having the eye closed or open, it having the ataxia. But if the person having the vestibular defect, in that case what happened, when the person closes the eye, the visual input is not there. Right? So the visual input which goes to the cerebellum is get cut off. So in that case, the only vestibular apparatus, they carry the information to the cerebellum. So now the vestibular apparatus has to come into the action. And in that case, if there is a defect of this, now we can person is not able to stay steadily or stand steadily. So we call it as a sensory ataxia. So because the sensory input is because the ataxia because of the defect in the sensory input. So it is known as a vestibular ataxia, sensory ataxia. With closing the eye, person having the ataxia. So whatever balance person is maintained in that case, because of vestibular apparatus, but by the visual sign. So that is the Romberg sign. It can differentiate the sensory ataxia from the cerebellar ataxia. So this was about the vestibular part of the eighth cranial nerve, the vestibular cochlear nerve. Vestibular cochlear nerve, it is a sensory type of nerve.